Hello.
Welcome, folks.
What's going on?
Okay, I'm going to start off by saying, did I tell you that we're not a Star Wars channel? We're not a Star Wars show, but guess what?
We do like it.
We are back to the galaxy far, far away, and I could not be more excited to
Can't believe we're here.
to
We're
bring
finally here.
yeah.
It's crazy.
Glad to be back, to have the three of us back together, to be able to riff on some Star Wars. I know how much we love it, and my God.
They're just giving us more to love.
Yeah, everybody loves it too. It's amazing. Everybody universally says it's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit more. So it's 2022. This is officially our first episode of 2022. So I hope everybody out there who is listening and who is watching live with us tonight, I hope you guys had a great holiday season. Hope you had a wonderful new year. What was it like for you guys?
Pretty quiet.
Very quiet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happens when
Nice though.
it was quiet for us too. I think I said yesterday actually, I said I think my days of New Year's parties are pretty much over.
Yeah, I mean, it's falling on Saturdays like the holidays did. I work Friday and I work Monday, and so it didn't feel like anything this year except Saturday.
Yeah. I just want to put a disclaimer out there, a full disclaimer for those of you who are watching tonight, whether it's live tonight or you're watching this later on when it's re-uploaded. I want to apologize for the inconsistency of the slides that we're going to use tonight. I spent a couple days working at this, but I put in so much time into it. I did not have enough time to go back and polish some of the early stuff, which, given now that I have that experience behind me, I will promise that I won't do that again. Well, maybe. But here we are. We're back to talk Star Wars. And of course, Andy, you had mentioned this week that there was a lot more to come for 2022. And I thought we would start off with just a quick little blurb on that by just kind of sharing and talking about what is coming in 2022 for Star Wars television. There is quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I realized that all of this was in 2022. Of course, we are at the Book of Boba Fett here.
So we get 7 more episodes before it's over.
That's right. So 8 weeks of this. I don't know. I mean, obviously the slide doesn't really give us any indication of when things are going to drop. And I don't have any inside scoop on when these things are coming. But I mean, you look at the episode count for everything that's there. There are several hours worth of Star Wars television coming this year.
That's not taking into account any of the Marvel stuff that they're going to be.
Right? Yeah.
Right. And Ahsoka's missing from that list, but I mean, if this is official, I guess it's official. But I had heard her bantered around in 2022 as well.
Well, maybe there's room for her to pop up in some of the other things. Like and we're going to get to this later. I mean, it's a real stretch, but I actually thought for a moment there that they were doing something in this week's episode of Boba Fett that may be something to overlap with Obi-Wan, but I'm not sure. I think it's such a far stretch, but who knows? We'll see when we get to it. But personally, I'm most excited for, obviously, for Obi-Wan. He's my favorite character. I absolutely love the character. But I am really, really intrigued about what they are going to do with Andor.
Yeah, I've got high hopes for all of these things. I'm really enjoying this ride so far. They seem to have they've got it going on, especially with these TV properties. The 2 seasons rather of the Mandalorian were just stellar, and I've been saying it for a bit now, and I'm probably a Filoni file, I guess, at this point. But I trust
you and me both.
I trust those guys know what they're doing, and this is not it's not 39 minutes and that's it. It's a slow burn. It's going to last years. It's been building for years, and we're still in the middle of the beginning of it. Like, there's so much more to come, and I couldn't be more excited. This is the Renaissance era of Star Wars. It's a golden age. It's a great time to be a fan. It's a great time to be an adult, to be able to spend the money on it.
I mean, creatively speaking, we've talked about this before. I think we all agree that the right people are helming the ship.
Yep.
Yeah, I know that producers come up an awful lot in Hollywood, and really, I mean, Kathleen Kennedy probably, deals with more shade in Hollywood than most producers, but really, for her to have the trust in Dave and John and all the creative team behind The Mandalorian and now the Book of Boba Fett, Robert Rodriguez, who is now helming this entire series for us. Thank you for that. We certainly do. We certainly like it. I like it. I appreciate it.
To be a fly on the wall while he's sitting there playing out the episode.
With his action figures.
Yep.
Storyboarding everything with his action figures.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about, I just want to get into the sort of before we get into the breakdown, just cursory, what was your first impression, guys?
Not bad at all.
Oh yeah, I mean, a few things aside, because I watched it on my phone, it was quite dark, and I thought some plot points were slightly different. Maybe, I don't know, not cooler, but different. I mean, I was suitably impressed. My expectations were pretty. I mean, I guess they were high because the quality of the stuff that's come before, but this is like a tabula rasa here. We have a blank slate. There's not a lot known about the character, so you can go a lot of places with him. You could do anything with him, and I mean, aside from taking him completely out of the armor, that might be the only thing that would be weird to me. You could pretty much go any direction with him because it's all untold.
That sentiment has come up a lot. Sort of, that's one of the other things about pushing our show back another day, is we get one more day to actually look at what the fan communities are saying, and sometimes it's pretty on point, and other times it's like, what are you talking about?
Did you watch the same show?
Right? Did we not? We didn't watch the same thing, did we?
No.
I will say this: if I could sum up this episode in just one line, I would say that the first episode of the Book of Boba Fett, more than anything else, shows us that Boba Fett is a man and not just his armor.
Yeah.
Right. Sure. Absolutely.
I mean, they basically strip it right away from him, right in the opening episode.
Take away the armor
and see what he's got left.
Right. And I think that therein lies maybe one of the biggest complaints of the episode is when you strip away the armor, you strip away the mystery.
Yeah. But at the same time, it fills in those plot hole gaps. Like, how did he get out of the Sarlacc, and how the hell did Cobb Vanth get it?
Right.
And now we're kind of getting our pieces at a time, and it's going to come crashing together at some point. And
there's a certain segment of the fan population that would say that the mystery, or another good example is in episode 4, Obi-Wan basically imparts a couple of anecdotes about the Clone Wars, and some people would argue that Obi-Wan's anecdotes are better than the depictions of those anecdotes. I don't know if I agree with that.
No, it's Wolverine syndrome, right?
Yeah,
but Wolverine is still hugely popular.
Even absolutely,
after all the backstory has been filled in.
I'm a huge fan of more is more, and where my Star Wars is concerned, as you say, Hank, we are in a renaissance where, like it or not, all those little plot holes are getting filled, and other branches of the franchise are getting fleshed out.
I think it stems from, like you said earlier, Hank, your headcanon. And you're just afraid of what somebody's going to do with it because they're not you.
Right.
But when you have someone like Filoni or Favreau and Rodriguez doing it, you're pretty safe.
So I was talking about this with my wife a little today, and around the house, I have a controversial opinion about the Spider-Man movie. I'm not the biggest fan
of the
new Spider-Man. One. Yeah, yes, sir. And I won't get into it, and I actually won't attack it for hate's sake because there are so many redeeming things about it.
Yes, there are.
But in terms of a character like Boba Fett, when people are coming going, this isn't what Boba Fett would do, this isn't what Boba Fett would think, this isn't what he would say, this isn't how he would scowl at a piece of dirt, this isn't how he would fly a ship. We actually don't know any of that.
Thank you.
We don't know any of it. We've had 2 minutes and 8 seconds of live action footage. We've had a few episodes of sporadic pieces of stuff from when he was a child, from the Clone Wars. We've seen, arguably the coolest thing we've seen yet out of him is an episode of Clone Wars in a gunfight that may or may not be canon.
In an animatic that we don't know
arguably the coolest
if where.
Thing about him. Now there's
I don't know, that gaffy stick fight was pretty good in Mandalorian.
And there's about 30 or 40 canon comic books.
Well, they're
all about Boba Fett. and just recently wrapped up the War of the Bounty Hunters, and it tells the story of how Boba Fett loses the carbonite body of Han Solo, and then has to fight everybody in the friggin' galaxy to get it back. And I swear, guys, if they even bring an ounce of the character that they've done, that Charles Soule has wrote in these comic books, we're in for a hell of a ride, because he's not a one-dimensional, I'm going to disintegrate you guy. He's very nuanced. He has compassion. He's not going to shoot somebody in the back. He has a code of honor. All these things are apparent in the comics, and a lot of people can't or won't do the work. And so and I know a lot of the purists are like, oh, I should just be able to watch 39 minutes and get the whole story. But that's not what Star Wars is anymore.
No, not anymore.
What Marvel comics are anymore. You know,
you don't have to jam it in there. You can flesh it out over so many episodes.
And peel it back. And I don't think it takes away anything not knowing that comic stuff, but certainly if it adds to it. 100% it adds to it.
That's where I am with it.
Things that can be told.
That's exactly where I am with it. I think that's what part of what makes our show what it is that I don't have the intrinsic knowledge of the comic books, and I rely on you guys to bring that to the table, which makes for better conversation. But I think that is maybe the only criticism I will say about that is, as you say, those other materials, whether it's the young adult novels or the mainline novels or the comic books, should never take away from the visual experience, because Star Wars is a visual medium.
That's right.
But if it can add something, I'm all for it. Sure, why not?
Yeah, that's right. And I guess my counterpoint to that would be, and the reason I had several problems with Spider-Man was because I have thousands of hours spent with that character.
Invested. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know that I don't own the intellectual property, and I could get into those arguments, and you know how we have ownership over it and gatekeeping and all that other stuff. And I won't take it that far, but it's one of those things where I do have a set pattern in my head, the way that Peter Parker would perform. And my argument is, if I have constructive criticism about that, I think that I can bring a valid point to it. But there's nobody can have constructive criticism against a character that we don't know anything about. So that's what I would say is, if there were thousands of hours of Boba Fett lore and he was going against things, people might have a leg to stand on. They don't.
Fair enough. And I certainly appreciate that. So I want to just touch on when we talked about the Disney Plus day and we did the trailer breakdown.
Yeah.
I want to mention that I had made some, what I would say, relatively bold predictions about the show.
Yeah.
I just want to say, yay me, because I actually got some this time.
You did. You actually did. Yeah, fully did.
I pulled a couple off. Yeah. The other thing is, and I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again, just like with the Bad Batch, the first time through, I wasn't fully warmed up to it. Mm-hmm. But in my subsequent watchings, for the purpose of our show, again, as I've said before, when you watch something with your review eyes on, you are looking at it in a completely different way. And the more that I scrutinized, the more I enjoyed it. So
yeah, that's very true. Sometimes it could be the other way around, and that I find with this, that's absolutely. I find more meat, more
me too.
Marrow in the bone, if you will.
Yeah, with four viewings now, 3 of which have been under the microscope, I am very warmed up to the show. So I want to say that the episode 1, I think, is a good start. I think we're going to get a lot of the things that we talked about. This dual storytelling that they're doing, where some of it is in the Mandalorian universe present, and then some of it which is in the past, sort of Return of the Jedi. Yeah,
arguably the best gangster movie ever made. Straight out of Godfather 2, which is following ostensibly the same character in 2 timelines, and watching it play out, and having things in the past inform the future, and having things in the future inform things in the past. I mean, this goes deep, man. We should get going. It goes deep, right from the title.
On the subject of flashbacks, the episode, just for reference sake, the episode is only 34 minutes and 40 seconds without your credits. 20 minutes and 26 seconds of that is in the past.
That's right.
So like 2/3 of the episode is a flashback.
That's right. He calls them dreams.
Yeah, absolutely he does.
Mm-hmm.
We got our first comment coming in tonight. We've got Dr. Derpy on YouTube who says episode 1 was good, wasn't perfect, but a good way to open a new chapter of Star Wars. And I'm curious how it will go from here. 7 out of 10.
That's pretty
Dr.
good
Derpy,
score.
thank you for that comment. I agree with you. It is definitely it's high praise, and it deserves it.
Yeah,
This is
we're
just
never
the
going
opening
to.
shot.
We're never going to get perfect. Because Derpy, you're perfect, and my perfect, and Wes is perfect, and Andy perfect are all different. So we're never ever going to, you know what I mean? We're gonna,
Yeah.
If you're calling it a 7 out of 10, and I'm a little higher, and Wes is in that range, like then that's perfect common ground where we're enjoying something on a level and taking a little bit different things out of it.
Yep.
But we're never going to get. I don't want to say that. I don't know if I'll ever get 10 out of 10 Star Wars.
I don't know. The final episode
see that because then I'll never get it again and again and again. So I love to skirt close to that edge, but never maybe go over it.
Man, season finale, season 2 of The Mandalorian was a 9+ for me.
Like you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
And if you hit me over the head with another Han Solo cameo, and then next week we get
Yep.
Jeremy Bullock comes back to life and has sex with Grand Moff Tarkin or something. Too much can be too much of a good thing. So
sure it can.
Hopefully it's crafty and hopefully it's yeah. I'm 7 out of 10 is a good score. It's a solid opener for sure.
All right. You guys ready to do this?
Yeah, man.
All right, let's do it. This is the way we do it here on Fandom Power. This one is the Book of Boba Fett. It's episode 1. It is called Stranger in a Strange Land.
Ooh.
The episode debuted on Disney Plus Wednesday, December 29th. It has a runtime of 39 minutes if you stayed right to the end of the international credits, or as I had said before, it's 34 minutes and 40 seconds without. I know it's not a Star Wars thing, but I just made a note here. There is no post-credit scene. So if you were hanging around waiting for something, you're wasting your time. Yeah. This one is written by Jon Favreau and is directed by Robert Rodriguez.
Well, I wouldn't call it a waste of time. A lot of people worked on it.
For the credits.
Nice
yes.
And we get that the production art, which I love.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, if you are interested, as action figure collectors, if you guys were interested in the credit collection, then you have an idea of what to expect. Although, did you catch in the credits this week, there was some original Macquarie art?
I did see that.
There was some Macquarie art in there from Return of the Jedi. Yeah,
it's fantastic stuff. I got to start with the title, man. Exodus 2:22.
Yeah,
Moses referring to himself. Stranger in a strange land.
Stranger in a strange land.
The sojourner, the trespasser, if you will, and it's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, in John and Dave, we do trust.
Thank you, Dr. Derpy.
Yeah, right at the biblical reference too. It's not lost on me that the character of Moses was,
lost in the desert,
raised up to the level. Well, on the surface, certainly lost in the desert, but raised up to the level of a Pharaoh's son, and then stripped of everything he had, and made to wander that desert and become the leader of a nomadic people. So we're getting led down. We're getting both stories, and except that him.
Oh Lord, we have a catastrophic failure. What's going on here?
My mic got muted.
That's the one. That's not the one I want to be on. Oh, go figure. I have just totally pooched it.
What happened?
Oh no. Minor technical difficulties. I don't know if anybody can hear me right now.
I can hear you.
Probably not.
I can hear you.
Oh, what did we do?
I can hear you.
I thought I was going to be doing something clever, and I really just pooched it.
I felt like I was pontificating anyway.
Am I back?
I hear you.
I think so.
Am I back? Oh my Lord.
I hear you guys.
You heard me throughout. Of course you did.
Yeah.
Catastrophic failure here. I thought I was being clever. I was going to try and throw open another window and mute it so we could have our comments running in a separate window.
Did it mute Did it mute me?
No,
in my,
I muted everything. I couldn't hear a thing.
Oh, my filibuster.
Oh, my apologies.
Boba Fett is Moses. Let's go.
all the growing pains here.
right
All
after this, that Exodus 2:22 sets up Moses' biggest moment, and that's
Sure.
talking to the burning bush.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, let's go. Boba Fett's on a journey.
All right, so let's start with this one here. Our episode opens with an exterior panning shot of Jabba's palace. Presumably, the scene is set in the time just after the conclusion of season 2 of The Mandalorian, so roughly 5 or perhaps even 6 years after the events of Return of the Jedi. I had to do a split screen on this because it was jaw-dropping when I saw it. It is undeniable at how evocative the scene is of Return of the Jedi by using that same camera angle.
That's right.
And the same side of the building. There are some minor changes, though, since Jabba's demise. You can see that there's at least 2 small towers that have been added, one at the front of the main monastery building and another one on the wall that surrounds the whole compound. All right. We can also see that the rock formation where the frog used to sit, it's now been weathered away.
Yeah.
So that's props to the guys for doing this.
Sandstorms of Tatooine.
Yeah. From there, the camera is going to pass through some more familiar places. Like we're going to get a shot of the inside of the front gate, which is like I had to stop for a second and go, did they lift this directly out of Jedi and just clean up the negative? Like, what's going on here? But then we hit the stairwell in the courtroom, and now we start to see some of the differences. Like, the lighting has changed a little bit, but I mean, it's just the attention to detail on the recreation is just staggering here.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Then we pan over towards Jabba's plinth, and it's still the same plinth, only now we've got a throne on it, and of course the barbecue spit that apparently nobody ever saw it before that last episode of The Mandalorian. Like, hey, was there a barbecue always there?
Yeah.
No, apparently there was.
There was.
Well, there's a reason Bib Fortuna looked like he did.
That's true. Finally, the camera zooms in on a room that we've never seen before. But I went back into the marketing materials and pulled some stuff out of the trailer 1. And we can surmise that this is Boba's private quarters at the top of the main tower, the main tower off of the monastery building.
Mm-hmm.
The room's most predominant feature is a long white cylinder. It's a bactopod, and inside lays the infamous bounty hunter Boba Fett, who now looks much healthier than we saw him at the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian. All right, I gotta say,
yes, sir.
I had hoped that they were going to do something with the Bomar mythology there. Remember we talked about the healing crystals?
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So much for healing crystals, but really,
show's just getting started.
Bacta was the obvious answer, I do believe.
Absolutely.
Dr. Derpy, back on YouTube, says props to the composer of the Boba Fett theme. It's a banger. So that is, correct me on that, I can't pronounce his Göransson. It's the same composer who is composing The Mandalorian. Ludwig Göransson is the same composer from The Mandalorian, and his work is fantastic. All right, inside the where are we at here? Inside the Bactopod, Boba's rest is fitful, and he winces as troubling dreams begin to haunt him. And we are immediately given a quick sort of run through of some memories of Geonosis and Camino. Shot. That's a new shot of Camino. I don't think that's a reuse of anything. And there's Slave 1 sitting on the land pad in the Jango Fett colors.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Cut across over to the arena at Geonosis, and we looked at the split shot of this earlier in the week. There's a few things missing here. The droid count is a little thin, as are there's no Jedi bodies, and the Reek beast is absent from this. So this is another one that's been recreated with another child actor.
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff I've read about this, and there's no evidence to support this at all as fact, but they're saying this was an alternate shot from Attack of the Clones in unused footage.
Really?
Which
Yeah,
would
that's
explain
what I-
why
You know
some
what? It
elements are
absolutely
missing.
could be.
Yeah.
I just
and
put
so
it-
I read that 2 or 3 times. I couldn't tell you what the source is right now, but
no, fair enough.
yeah. So
I
again,
just wrote it off to a new one.
Yeah,
to a
it's beautiful.
recreation.
Especially I thought fully that if it was a recreation, the image of young Daniel Logan reflected in the helmet
In
which
the
we never
T
saw
visor.
before,
Yeah,
was
fantastic.
amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
very, very good. Watching the episode as we do for review purposes with both the descriptive audio and subtitles on, I want to touch on the helmet for a second, because this is something that has come up, man.
Multiple times.
What season of Clone Wars did young Boba attempt to seek revenge on Mace Windu with the helmet bomb?
Season 2, episode 20. I'm not keeping track.
So that's like how many years ago?
Couple.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
2010.
descriptive audio lady, who I have to say is exquisite in the way she narrates, on the nose tells us that Jango's helmet is in fact Beskar.
Mhm.
So that's going to spark the argument again. Was it the real helmet used in the helmet bomb? And I'm going to go out and say no, that it was a proxy.
Yeah.
So I went back and I rewatched that very episode. That's kind of, and that run of episodes, because most of the episode it gets lost, but it's about R2 trying to save Anakin
Right.
and Mace after the explosion. But the reason that Mace knows who it was, and therefore when they arrest Boba at the end, they, it's understood.
Yep.
Because he's holding the helmet in his hands after the explosion.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And the paint is scuffed on it, but it is still intact.
It's still intact.
I never remembered that. I thought it had been destroyed. I might have just watched it like 10 years ago with
and just
different
forgotten
eyes
about
and
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
But in the there's a book out, The Empire Strikes Back 40th anniversary. There's like I can't remember what the book's called, but it's got all these weird facts and different little stories from the set and stuff. And there's a little blurb that says that it's his father's armor.
Yeah,
he reused his father's armor, and
yes,
they never really say whether he reused the helmet part, but it might be taken for road. I after having rewatched it and I think it might be there are slight variations to the two helmets.
If we're going to use if we're going to go on the assumption that the helmet bomb is the original, is the real McCoy as we are looking at right now on our slide, then I'm going to have to go out and say that animatic cannot be canon, because there is no way a blaster pistol is going to dent Beskar if a explosive will not blow it out to some degree.
Mm-hmm. Or at least
unless there's a way to tune a blaster, because we see,
I suppose, that's
some
true.
kind of blasters just taking Mandalorians out.
Well,
left,
no,
right,
you're
center,
absolutely
right.
right. Yes. We have an interesting comment
in
here.
Headcanon, you could tune a blaster.
Fair enough. We've got a comment from Facebook from an anonymous user who says, why didn't Jango's head fall out of the helmet? I've always wondered that. Now, Facebook user, if you have access to the film, I want you to go back to that sequence, and I want you to put it in your Blu-ray player, and I want you to watch it frame by frame, because as the helmet is flying through the air, we can see the shadow of Jango's head fall out of the helmet, even though we do not see the actual head.
That's right.
So,
before he picks it up, so it doesn't
It
pick
is
it up and it just sloughs out like cranberry dressing or whatever. It actually comes out.
Canberry dressing.
Canberry dressing. It comes out of the helmet on Mace Windu's cut.
Yes.
So, it was pretty controversial actually when people first slowed it down and went, "Whoa, that's dark."
Yeah. Okay, so, and then after the little childhood dream sequence, we shift. And it's the moment that we've all been waiting for 38 years. We finally get to Boba's escape from the Sarlacc. Now, before we get to that, I want to just touch on the Legends escape, because there are two Legends versions of the escape that both essentially rely on Boba using his jetpack. But there
Three if
apparently
you count the Marvel comic.
Well, so here we go. So there was an attempt to reconcile both of those into one continuity, which actually means that not only did he fall in there once and get out, but he did it twice.
That's right.
So it's kind of, which in that respect, what we saw on the episode is clearly better than that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, where are we at here now? Oh no, never noticed that. Yes, Mark, Mace is a mean mother. Boop.
It says on the wallet.
That's what
True.
it says. That's so true. All right. So, somewhere in the gullet of the almighty Sarlacc, an unconscious Boba Fett comes to. Struggling to breathe, he notices a dead stormtrooper a short distance away. Dragging himself by the Sarlacc's own entrails, Boba is able to get close enough to the trooper to pull an airline from the dead soldier's helmet. Stuffing the line up under his own helmet, he takes a few deep breaths. Then, punching through the beast's intestine, he ignites his flamethrower, presumably killing the Sarlacc in the process, thus allowing him to climb back to the desert surface.
No, it was just heartburn.
Okay. I just want to go around round table here. How long does everybody think he was down for?
Okay.
At least a while. He was getting, somewhat digested.
So I came at this a couple of different angles. He was either in there 24 hours, and that's the air supply. It runs out. His helmet's pressurized, and that's why he wakes up when he runs out of air, actually. But the other theory is that the air supply is not that long, and that he's actually there late afternoon. And that's like I would say Jabba brought them out to the Pit of Carcoon maybe first thing in the morning, just after dawn.
Sure.
So he could have been there as late as 24 hours and as early. Pull the camera down again. As early as maybe 6 to 10 hours, I would say. Not very long at all.
Long enough that whatever combustible materials on the sail barge had burned themselves out.
Yeah, because there was no visible smoke in the background.
No, nothing. So
it was 100% smoking when the Jawas pulled up at night.
Funny because it's not in the daylight shot.
I know, but it's smoking, and when the
Isn't
Jawas
that
pull
weird?
Up, yeah,
That's bizarre.
Yeah.
I didn't actually catch that. I'm gonna have to go back and look for that.
Mostly made of metal, right? What's it gonna burn?
That's true. All right, so the victory. The victory is small as Boba is still weakened from his ordeal and probably very hypoxic. I assume that the couple of breaths were just enough to clear the fog, and then of course he's got to punch his way through, burn his way through, and then dig through all that sand to get out. No wonder he just falls unconscious.
Well, 100%
again.
And clearly, it's eaten through his jumpsuit. When after the Jawas put the light on him, it's bleached it white, and we know it to be gray, like dirty
that's
gray.
Right. That's right.
The acids have bleached it white.
Do you want to talk about the Stormtrooper for a second? I know that's come up a few times on different fan platforms. What do we think about the Stormtrooper being down there?
He's been there since New Hope.
Well, yeah.
Sure. I mean, Jabba feeds a lot of people to the Sarlacc. Like, that's kind of his thing, right? It's like, ooh, I got a new Sarlacc. Let's do this for the very first time.
Right.
You don't get the impression that he's got a boat built just for that.
The biggest question was
that goes out over it. And
why is there a Stormtrooper down there?
Right? This is like his level 2 above a Rancor. He's like, okay,
of course,
you've pissed me off times 2. Now you're going to the Pit of Carcoon, and you know what? There's probably worse. There's worse out there.
There's a
dragon is worse than that, I would say.
Well, I would say is that as well. There's a ton of reasons why a Stormtrooper could be in there without getting too, down in the weeds. But I mean, when the Empire arrived on Tatooine, how long did it take them to find that thing? It could have been just a random trooper patrolling.
Sure.
Dewback got dragged in and he's gone.
Yep.
It very well could have been Jabba, feeding.
Droids.
Yeah, exactly. One thing, though, the whole idea of you will, learn the meaning of agony as you are digested over 1,000 years. And I think that visually is conveyed very well by the pitting of the trooper's armor, that the body is like pitted. There's holes in it.
Mm-hmm. And it's
certainly
like grown into the.
Yes, he's like now guts, being pulled in. Yes.
Yeah, like half his helmet was sort of morphed into the gut. Yeah, absolutely.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, and as you say, of course, it's not long before the wreckage of the katana attracts a Jawa sandcrawler, and predictably, the Jawas strip Boba's armor right off his body.
And they go right to work.
They waste no time whatsoever.
Oh, yeah.
What I find interesting though is it out of context, or maybe new context, is they're a little bit more devious than maybe, like we always understood that they were mischievous.
Yeah.
But like he's alive and like struggles like and they like fully knock him out.
Yeah, this is the first time we've seen them get physical.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So things don't get much better from there, because sometime later, probably the next day, a band of Tusken Raiders arrive and Boba is quickly taken prisoner. Now, it's bad enough that he suffered from the acid burns of the Sarlacc's digestive juices, but now you add in being cooked in the twin suns of Tatooine. It's no wonder that he looks so bad in this shot.
Yeah.
A little bit sun bleached.
Yeah.
Single file to hide their numbers, fellas.
Absolutely. So dragging Boba back to their encampment, he's tied to a post.
Dragging him is actually good for them. It hides the tracks more.
Hides the tracks, yeah. Just like it was one small crate dragon crawled through here.
Yeah.
The clan children now poke at Boba and they beat him with their wooden sticks, while the clan chief and his wife look on. Eventually, one of the kids kicks Boba in the head, knocking him unconscious. Now, that little kid, we talked about this sort of earlier on in the week. Oh, look at that. Are things in the way? That kid is actually Wesley Kimmel. He's the nephew of late night talk show host Jimmy Kimmel. And you guys might remember him as Commercial Boy in WandaVision.
There you go.
He was in all the commercials: Lagos paper towels, Hydra soap, and Nexus antidepressants.
Yeah. Really,
Wesley
who
Kimmel.
You know.
Yeah. Good for him too, by the way.
And isn't that such a kid thing to do in this scene though? Like, they don't have official gaffy sticks.
No, but they've got wooden sticks.
Ones.
They've got wooden sticks.
So
practice.
You want to talk about that for a second? You want to talk about the presence of wood on Tatooine and how much upset that's caused?
Sure.
There is wood in the desert, folks. There are plants in the desert.
Well,
I think a lot of
we see later.
The deck of Jabba's sail barge was all beautiful wood.
Yeah,
the thing about having spaceships and a spaceport is that you can import anything you want.
Yeah.
And I imagine you import stuff that eventually is garbage, and that scavengers would use that garbage. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that's a crazy stretch. It's not like they had a swimming pool. Those are the kind of things that might make me go, maybe they don't know what they're doing. The Tusken Raiders have an above ground swimming pool.
Yeah.
A couple of wood stumps that, Tatooine, we know from Legends, and we're leaning heavily into Legends all the time. We know Tatooine wasn't like this always.
Apparently Tatooine was an ocean oasis at one time.
And so there are probably plants there. And I mean,
well, there's still plants underground.
Right, exactly.
But on the other hand, are we 100% sure that these are wood sticks? Could they not be crate bones or something?
Well, bones, possibly. The gnarly, twisted nature of them, I just assumed that they were wood. But you do raise a good point. They could be some bone, some piece of anatomy that we're just not familiar with because
or petrified wood. I mean,
yeah.
Something. And what's Facebook?
Facebook, it was awesome seeing the different style of clothing and the different classes. And I think when you say different classes, you mean the people that I've identified, or at least I am calling them the chief and the chief's wife.
Right.
The warrior, head warrior.
We're going to talk about them a little bit more because the two of those two characters share a unique color palette that nobody else in the tribe has. So I think that's the visual cue for us.
I remember when we first saw the trailer and you were speculating that one of the Tuskens in the trailer may have been Boba.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
And I was like, well, I don't know about that, but I definitely think that they're wearing black instead of brown. And they are. And they're some of them are wearing browns and reds, and some of them look more haphazard, if you will. Like I made the joke on our on Messenger that they didn't shop at Bags R Us or wherever the rest of the Tusken shop at Potato Sacks R Us.
Yeah, that's right.
But they seem to be
was
more
a female in the numbers though.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't know if that hair was added or if it was like through, like she had black dreads. I
really like that. I don't know if that was rags or her actual hair.
Her hair coming through.
Yeah.
It's a neat sort of a neat twist too.
It's a predator under there.
And his his necklace reminded me of the Twi'lek, the carving that they do, the family carving.
Yeah.
It reminded me heavily of
It
that.
does, yeah, very much so.
I read a little bit about Sharad Hek, the
Sharad Het, yeah.
The Jedi,
The Tusken Jedi.
well, he's human, but
not?
raised by
Yeah.
Tusken, and then
Yeah.
so I mean, there's some stuff there. Their tents are different than the tents we've seen them in, especially in Attack of the Clones, where they had hide sort of more
even from
style.
even in the Mandalorian. I mean, there's definitely a difference. These ones were more Bedouin style, like much lower to the ground. Like they looked.
And I got the impression, like, even though we see them fight and use rifles and stuff, we don't see any rifles here, by the way.
No,
they're not there. But they seem like maybe a different caste, like a warrior caste or something.
Throughout, I mean, it's got to be a small clan for one, because the entire clan has one massive, just one.
In Legends, there's a city on Tatooine.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of massives, that night, later during the night when Boba wakes up again, he sees that a Rodian has also been taken prisoner, and the two of them are now being guarded by the single massive. With the massive sleeping near the campfire, Boba exchanges glances with his fellow prisoner and then sets about to free himself using the post that he's tied to as a friction point to cut the ropes. And he starts to rub his hands vigorously against the post.
Resourceful.
Yeah, but the massive wakes from its sleep and slowly stalks towards him. Once in range, the guard animal pounces, but Boba, having successfully freed his hands from the post, is able to catch it in a headlock. He wrestles it to the ground, then pounds it with both fists, knocking it out.
And he does the classic. It's an old thing they used to do in the movies to show that if the hero had to punch out a dog or an animal, it's called saving the cat. It's an old Hollywood trope where the actor will pet the animal after he does some kind of violence to it to show that he's not actually a bad guy.
Right, it's not the animal's fault.
It's right. So that's a Hollywood trope, that petting that looked awkward.
There's awkward
on purpose.
He does that later on in the episode when he's digging for melons, and he just looks up at the massive and he's like, "Nah, no hard feelings, mate."
Right.
Yeah. All right. So, but the massive wakes up from its sleep. Oh, sorry, we've already gone through that. Using the massive's own teeth, Boba is able to cut his bonds completely. He then turns to the Rodian and offers to free him. But the Rodian yells out an alert, and the Tuskens come knowing that something is wrong. Hearing the wails of the Rodian, the Tusken boy surges toward Boba and attempts to subdue him with his stick, but is quickly disarmed and then knocked to the ground. And while the rest of the tribe rushes to see what's going on, Boba runs out into the night. But the unconscious massive has made a quick recovery and runs him down. And when the chief and the other members of the tribe catch up, the chief signals to the massive, and the beast returns to its master's side. The chief then nods to his wife, and she unslings her gaffy stick and strides towards Boba, still armed with the boy's stick. Now, all visual clues aside here, like we just said, the black and red thing, do we think that the boy, who also shares that color palette, is their child?
I think so.
The chief.
I would think
I
so.
think it's the chief's son, child anyway.
Because he gets run shot over the whole camp, right?
Yeah.
That's
Hey, go poke that, prisoner.
We don't see any other.
He there's a visual cue when he first hits the tied up Boba. He looks over at the chief seeking approval. He's the first one to start striking them out of all the children. Then they all sort of join in. He takes them looking soon. He will take them looking for the melons, and so it's a level of sort of responsibility or training. So I think it's empirical. It's also so dances with wolves, if you will, like where you the classic the natives capture, or the cowboy wanders into their land, and they at first they're adversaries, but then he learns their ways and befriends them somehow. Right. And like I said in the I'd be crying white savior if he wasn't a Maori actor.
That's right.
But we don't know that that's what's going to happen. But certainly that's an excellent. And when we say trope, we don't mean anything negative by it. Like, we loved all the Western stuff in The Mandalorian. So it stands to reason that we'd get more of that sort of
From a
pure
narrative
genre stuff.
Yeah. From a narrative perspective, though, I mean, there's all this commotion. The Rhodians wailing like a mad thing. Everybody's running to see what the hell's going on. And now mom and dad show up, and their kid is flat out on his ass, and the prisoner's running away.
That's right.
Do you think that it's intentional that the chief basically goes, "Okay, mom, go kick his ass"?
Yeah. That's probably
instead of doing it himself.
It's probably a test too. I think actually that fight is coming up. It's just a theory, and I think that having it in the first episode is going to be a waste. I think it's going to be a big fight.
Agreed.
Challenge for leadership.
Not necessarily leadership. I think maybe more.
I think there is a pattern that's been established with the character already, and I think that Boba has a soft spot for children.
Yeah.
And it might be a Mandalorian thing. It might be him, remembering what it was like to be a child and being raised in these crazy things, like we saw him in the Clone Wars, being raised by just
clearly he's still affected by the loss of his father.
So and why I say that is because like he's got to think like in the Mandalorian he doesn't hesitate to help Grogu as a child. I mean he's helping Din Djarin, yes, but it's as a recompense for getting the armor back, he's willing to go above and beyond for this child, at the same time. And we see him, he could have easily defended himself against the blows of the children, but he just slumped over and let them beat him conscious. Yeah. And then he had the kid dead to rights, could have crushed his skull, like everybody's saying Boba Fett would have crushed the child's skull. But he's not a child killer. Right. And we don't know him really to be that much. I mean, he could have killed Han Solo. The only thing we've ever seen him do is take in one guy alive. That's all we've ever seen him do.
Which he didn't even have to catch on his own.
No. Right?
Well, I mean, outside of the comic stuff. I mean,
everybody. I mean, you guys got to read it. Everybody. Vader and Luke at the same time, coming from different angles. It's crazy.
But at the same time, how different would it have been if mom and dad had rolled up and found their kid dead? It wouldn't have been
a much different story.
It'd be like everybody.
Yeah, they'd have mauled him. They would have mauled him.
And I think that's part of the narrative that's coming up, is the fact that he's going to endear himself to them. And in fact, at the end.
To the tribe, yeah.
Right. We'll get there. But I think he has, by the end of the episode, at least
taken the first steps.
Part of his worth, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the fact that, even afterwards, and we'll get to it, the fact that he, of his own volition, because now he's not chained to anybody, he walked back with the kid.
Right.
He could have done, hey, if we can get to Anchorhead, I can get us off world. He could have went to Anchorhead. He could have at least started going that way, but he didn't.
Yep.
All right. Squaring off, Boba and the Tusken woman weave a deadly dance of melee combat, but even the most feared bounty hunter in the galaxy is no match for the prowess of the Tusken woman, and she beats him quite handily. Having defeated her adversary, the woman returns to her chief's side while the rest of the entourage surround Boba. The fallen warrior stares at the Tusken standing over him for a short time before once again being knocked unconscious. All right. With a flash of light, we're brought back to the present as Boba's healing bath is interrupted by Fennec Shand, and she's come to wake him so that he can hold his first court. Boba tells her that his dreams have returned, and without any outward acknowledgement from Fennec, she turns to leave, telling him that she'll have them waiting, whoever they are. And with the assistance of two droids, Boba dons his iconic armor.
Similar to the pit droids, you got pit droid heads.
They do have pit droid heads. They're like on a single wheel or something. I want to talk a bit about, now, we've talked about this before, especially back at our Bad Batch review series. How deep do we feel that the relationship between Boba and Fennec goes?
Years.
I mean,
I really do. Yeah.
At what point do you, as I said, the most feared bounty hunter in the galaxy, what kind of a relationship do you have to have with essentially a minion that you are trusting them with your inner, like, I'm having nightmares? You don't just tell anybody that.
No.
It really speaks to their connection.
There's three people in the castle, and one of them is a droid. She could have easily just taken the throne for herself. She seems like very handy, and she knows what she's doing. There's something there, like we're going to get into this, I think, more, and that's the code that these people live by, which is this underworld code. You're going to get this honor among thieves thing happening where like you don't necessarily, you know, if you were betraying everybody all the time, when you actually did betray somebody, it wouldn't mean anything. So like I think that those moments are going to be big and saved. So I think that you will find tight connections within the groups, and certainly Boba and Fennec have it.
They do. I mean, we assume, at least I assume, that at some point, and maybe the Bad Batch is going to fill that in, that Boba and Fennec's relationship goes back much further than what we saw. Clearly, we saw what happened in The Mandalorian. He saved her life, put the cybernetic parts in her to basically keep her alive. But because of the connection with oh my God, because of the Omega connection, and I still think that we're going to get that. We're going to get an on-screen meeting of the minds where Boba and Omega are going to me, they have to meet at some point.
Yeah,
they just have to.
I would think so.
And with Fennec already an integral part of that in keeping Omega alive, I think that is where we're going to get some needlepoint or some of the stitching to bring that together.
Right. Fennec's quite a bit older than Boba. If perhaps Mandalorian's age different, clones of Mandalorian's age different. But
I mean, with
Fennec
Boba
is on
supposed to
paper
be
older than Boba.
She has to be. I mean, she's a full-on bounty hunter, master assassin when we see her in the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I love that distinction is made in this episode where he introduces her as Fennec Shand, master assassin.
Yeah. I also enjoyed that.
Sorry, Anakin.
Okay, so in the throne room at the first court of Boba Fett, the bounty hunter and his master assassin begin to meet with his would-be courtiers. Lamenting the need for a protocol droid, they first meet with an Aqualish, and he comes bearing a chest of coins as a gesture of friendship. Now, without a translator, they have to make do with one of Jabba's old droids, and that droid is none other than 8D8, the former smelter droid who was reprogrammed to be a torturer. It's awesome. So some of the, in fact, the portrayal of this character, I'm just going to go ahead and advance that. You may recognize 8D8 as Matt Berry, who you may have seen as Douglas Renholm in the British sitcom The IT Crowd, or perhaps as Prince Merkimer in Disenchanted on Netflix.
That's right.
Nice.
So earlier on in the week, there was the credits apparently were identifying this character as UK2B, but the subtitles were still calling him 8D8.
Right.
So earlier this week, Pablo Hidalgo has actually come out and gone on the record to correct that, and it is in fact 8D8.
That's right.
So no confusion there.
That's the way we like our Pablo Hidalgo, correct and quiet.
Yes. With Matt Berry joining Star Wars, that is now the second IT Crowd alumnus.
That's right.
To play a droid in Star Wars. Of course, the first was Richard Ayoade's Q90 back in The Mandalorian. Next up on the docket is the Trandoshan named Doc Strassi, who 8D8 announces as the leader of the Trandoshan family, protectors of the city center and its business territories. Doc Strassi bears what is almost certainly a Wookiee pelt as a gift. The funny part is that Boba remarks how weird it is because he used to work for Doc Strassi. Fennec puts it in perspective by telling him that it's even weirder for him. Doc Strassi welcomes Boba as a new daimyo. It's a very particular choice of wording. And Boba remarks that it's an honor to be welcomed to Mos Espa by him. Doc Strassi is played by none other than our series director, Robert Rodriguez. The daimyo thing, that's an interesting choice of words.
That's great. It fits perfectly with the rest of the sort of samurai lore. Most of it is tucked hidden away, like an obi is the belt that the samurai wore.
Right.
So it's most of it's hidden and tucked, like Qui-Gon is a passive martial arts form. George Lucas sort of picked and chose, and we all understand that the Force is akin to Taoism and parts of Shinto and Buddhism pepper the sort of the mentality of the Jedi. So it makes perfect sense. This is pretty straight though. Of course, it's a different spelling, but the katana is the ship of the crime lord, and so the daimyo is a feudal lord in Japan, and so it fits perfectly for me. If we're going to call Cobb Vanth a marshal, we're going to definitely call Boba Fett a daimyo.
A daimyo,
and that reserves the lord title for your Sith lords and whatnot.
Of course.
It's perfect. It's perfect for me. I heard it and I went, yeah, that's fantastic, because that's where it comes from. There, it's so rooted in the samurai films, probably first rooted in samurai films.
So just going back to Trandoshan culture for a second now, Legends made it clear, and that's been canonized through the Clone Wars, that the Trandoshan species are the mortal enemies of the Wookiees. Now, do you remember that episode of the Clone Wars where Ahsoka was trapped with they were being hunted with the other kids, and she had to sort of get them out of it, and we saw the interior of one of the Trandoshan hunting ships, and we thought that they were Wookiee pelts. Yes. I mean, this is pretty on the nose with the four limbs hanging off of it. Mm-hmm. It's very striking to see that.
Maybe it's a big Ewok.
A very big Ewok.
It instantly made me not like the character, and not in any like, oh, Robert Roddy, you guys can't act. I actually prefer my Trandoshan masks. I would prefer a physical mask to the CG that they used, and I had that same complaint about the episodes of the Mandalorian that had them, but that's a minor aesthetic.
Man, I had a hard time.
I really went, I don't like this guy because he's got a Wookiee belt. So immediately I was like, that scumbag's got to go.
I had a hard time differentiating what was CG versus what was prosthesis, because I think, I mean, clearly there is a prosthesis there, but did they just enhance the mouth movement with CG to make it
the
look
eyes
more?
I feel like the eyes were
CG,
and that's a minor aesthetic choice. It takes nothing away from the fact that I loved this, and I wouldn't have instantly hated that character if he wasn't brandishing a full-on Wookiee belt.
Right. So I'm just gonna take this moment here now. This is where we blow one of my predictions out of the water, because this is the same Trandoshan that we looked at in the marketing and we thought, is this maybe Sid with the the necklace and the right coloring? And it's like, no, it's not.
No. But at the same time, we didn't see any Wookiee pelts in Sid's office.
That's true. So no.
That upped her likability factor.
Well, we can't get them all right.
No.
So we get on to our third core tier. The third core tier announced is a character by the name of Mok Shays. And Mok Shays is the mayor of Mos Espa. But instead of the mayor, he sends his Twi'lek major domo instead. When Fennec remarks that they were told that the mayor was coming to pay tribute, the Twi'lek apologizes for the confusion in the correspondence. The encounter is terse at best, as not only is the mayor not inclined to pay tribute to the new crime lord, he actually demands tribute of his own. Fennec turns to Boba, offering to kill the major domo, but he declines. And the two dismiss the Twi'lek with his life spared as tribute, and a gesture of perhaps another time. But before the major domo departs, he warns Boba that he may be visited by another delegation in the near future.
Boba's got a good line here too.
Clearly, it's a thinly veiled threat.
I'm the crime lord.
Yes.
Almost like a child,
yes.
like a petulant child. But wait a minute, I'm confused. I loved that, actually.
This character, the major domo, is played by actor David Pasquisi. You might remember him in the film Angels and Demons, the sequel to the Da Vinci Code. He played Vatican City police officer Claudio Vincenzi. You may also remember him from the HBO series Veep with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, where he played her ex-husband, Andrew Meyer. So one other thing, another one here. We don't meet Mok Shays, but I'm pretty sure we've seen him already. Mm-hmm. Because if you go back to the trailer 1, back here we see this Ithorian character, the character who says, "I know that you now sit on the throne of your former employer." Well, we can clearly see the major domo in the scene with him. So I'm going to go on the record and say that this Ithorian character, that's Mayor Mok Shays. Mok Shays, by the way, who was also voiced by Robert Rodriguez. Yeah, I just figured that. Just learned that this week. Yeah. All right. And then lastly, we get 2 Gamorreans who are brought in chains by a humanoid reminiscent of the Guavian Death Gang enforcers from The Force Awakens with that big central red eye on his helmet. 8D8 proclaims that the Gamorreans were former bodyguards who were loyal to Jabba and later on to Bib Fortuna, and they didn't surrender when their patron was killed. In a callback to his former role in Jabba's court, 8D8 suggests that torturing the Gamorreans would send a clear message to any challengers to Boba's throne. But Boba refutes the droid, exclaiming that he does not torture. 8D8 cautions that he must project strength if he is to be accepted as a daimyo. And Boba remarks that the Gamorreans were loyal to their bosses, and he asks them if they would be loyal to him if he spared their lives. Fennec counsels him that this is a bad idea, but turning back toward the Gamorreans, they immediately kneel in acceptance. All right. We're going to move on here now. This is it. I mean, we've said it a million times already, but we now have learned that this is, in fact, Mos Espa. It's an overhead shot of the sprawling city, a large portion of which rests in a deep crater. And at the center of that crater, there is a tall tower. I just want to say that the Phantom Menace does nothing to convey the size of this city.
No.
Like, it's huge.
It's very, very big. I tried really hard. I heard rumors that there was Doug Chiang concept art that showed Mos Espa squarely in a crater and surrounded by, but I could not find said images. And I did send along the best image I could find of a pre-production image from Phantom Menace. But it completely belies the scope because we have a huge bustling metropolis.
I pored over this image, for quite for a long time, zooming in on every facet of it, looking for the stadium and the racetrack, and you can't find it.
No,
it's not there. So, no. I mean, how much
be on the very outskirts, because only when the whole time they're going through the race, it's absolute desert.
Yeah.
And they sort of return to that central. Yeah, that's
when we saw
a beautiful shot.
When we first saw
Jeddah.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, and I mean, I'd said that back when we were looking at the trailer too. I thought, is this, it looked like maybe it was Jeddah. We had speculated maybe that's a crater from the single reactor ignition. Okay, so when we first saw this image back in the trailer review, we picked out, Andy, you picked out a couple of ships,
minor,
and I don't think you saw this one because I don't think we actually saw it.
No.
Off in the far right, we actually get the civilian version of the Gozanti cruiser, the Gozanti that was canonized back in Star Wars Rebels. This is a civilian version, but then we saw the militarized version of that, not only in Star Wars Rebels, but it made its live action debut in The Mandalorian. It was the ship that Din Djarin helped Bo-Katan steal.
That's right.
Yeah.
What's the other word? Liberate.
Yeah. For the cause.
Yep.
Okay, so down at street level, Boba and Fennec, along with their new Gamorrean bodyguards, stroll through a marketplace, drawing quite a bit of attention from the shopkeepers as they pass by. All right, so cool little thing that I picked out of this. I actually had to go back in there today. I just noticed this. There's an interesting, where is it here? So the market place is bustling with activity, including a shepherd with a very unique flock. So this gentleman, for those of you who are watching, you can see this. For those of you who are not, this is Spot. This is the semi-autonomous robot that is produced by Boston Dynamics. To the best of my knowledge, this is the first real robot in Star Wars that was not 100% human piloted. At first, there's the scene with the shepherd where she's hitting it with the stick to get it back in line. If you've seen any of the videos, and you can go on YouTube and you can see there's a bunch of videos about this particular machine. You can kick it, you can punch it, and it will right itself. Like, it will attempt to stay on where it's supposed to go. So it's a super cool thing. The company that has already had early adopting partners like Adam Savage and his tested YouTube channel, who basically had one for the entirety of 2020 to test it for a year. It's been deployed by the New York City Police Department Boston Dynamics says that they want to work with partners that won't weaponize the robot, but it can be fitted with specialized sensors like a methane detector, so they could sniff for gas leaks, or you could put a LiDAR unit, which would allow it to map essentially the inside of a building from the inside. But it can negotiate stairs, and I mean, it's good on hard packed surfaces. It can pretty much go anywhere. So yeah, or you can just go on YouTube and you can watch Spot mimic Mick Jagger from the Start Me Up video. So there you go, your first real world actual robot in Star Wars, and I almost missed it, but super cool.
Neat.
As they approach a building at the end of the street, Fennec tells Boba that he should have let the guards carry him on a litter, that the people of Mos Espa are used to seeing the huts being carried around, but Boba balks at the idea. Fennec insists that things would go a lot smoother if he would just accept their ways. All right, so inside the building, we can see that it's a bustling gaming establishment, and right now the joint is full. Lounge music fills the room from the live band led by the legendary Ortolan, Max Rebo. Yes, the same Max Rebo that we last saw on Jabba's sail barge. Max is accompanied by a Bith on guitar and an astromech droid on drums. Can we talk about this for a second?
Yeah, man.
So
it's like they're doing a remix of the song too.
Well, there he is. I mean, that is right out of the film. That's Max on the katana before it went up, and that's a shot of the katana after it went up. Did you guys think that anybody survived that?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah. As soon as stuff starts going sideways, I could see people diving off.
So there were two skiffs present in the sequence. One of them, Luke cleared out. Like he just cleared them out on his way to the sail barge. The other one they escaped on. Did we ever see the second skiff again?
Not that I recall.
I just assumed it went up in the blast. I just couldn't imagine that little dude waddling his way out of the desert.
Well, maybe his piano has extra features we're not aware about.
You mean his Red Ball jet organ?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be a whole lot easier to move the band if they got to perform in multiple spots.
That's true. Funny though, we get Max, but nobody else. No size noodles, none of the dancers, none of the backup
singers.
singers.
Survivor. He could
maybe. Mind you, I mean, it was his band, the Max Rebo band.
That's right.
All right. We get some other cool things in here too. We get, let me put this up here. As Boba and Fennec survey their surroundings, we can see a ton of aliens and droids, including a protocol droid, several astromech droids, and an RX series pilot droid that's working as a dealer at the center of a gaming table. Now, this one's a cool one. Now, I've never been to any of the Disney parks before, but that droid, the gaming droid, is actually a nod to RX-24. RX-24, if you don't know, was the pilot droid from the old Star Tours theme park ride. So canonically, the droid, essentially, when Star Tours got shut down, they changed they rewrote or they added to his canon that he actually made it to Batuu. Batuu is, of course, now where Galaxy's Edge is, where he was reprogrammed and given a minor upgrade, and he now works as a DJ at the droid depot at the Galaxy's Edge theme park.
That's right.
Dr. Derpy, praise to the Max. Yeah, cool to see him back. I hope maybe we'll get other little nods like that. If he can make it, then, I'm sure there's other people that can pop up from here and there.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? I didn't mention it, but how about that reuse of the Constable Zuvio hat again?
Yep.
Zuvio!
Everybody's got one. It's just a hat you can buy there.
Yeah. All right. So as Boba and Fennec step further into the establishment, they are approached by a pair of Twi'leks who offer to service their helmets as they wait for Madame Garsa Fwip. Fennec declines, but Boba hands both of them over anyway. And in a bit of a touche moment, Boba retorts that things would go a lot smoother if she accepted their ways.
And the innuendo is nice there. Can I polish your helmet? That's what Twi'leks do, and that sort of,
Yeah.
What I did notice was I tried real hard to see if they had the jagged teeth, because we've seen 4 Twi'lek now with ordinary teeth, except for Bib in the Bib's got the crazy teeth, but there are several different sort of subspecies. Like Cham Sandula, Hera's
Yep.
mom has weird
Has
teeth,
the sharp teeth, yeah.
but her mom and her do not. So
What
it's
about
just,
was Masameda? Did he not have the sharp teeth?
I believe so.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
His
He might have.
his third Liku was I believe it was like prosthetic.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. So next, as the two Twi'leks depart, another Twi'lek woman dressed in a regal gown approaches and bids Boba and Fennec welcome to the sanctuary. Cutting right to business, Boba introduces Fennec Shand as a master assassin, and then informs Madame Garsa that he has now taken over from Bib Fortuna, and he reassures her that her business will continue to thrive under his watchful eye. Garsa thanks him for the gracious introduction, and with a gentle stroke of his arm, tells Boba that he's always welcome, as the establishment is now his. Garsa Fwip, played by Jennifer Beals, I think that was blown wide open in the marketing and the lead up to the show.
That's right.
Of course, everybody of our generation is going to remember her from Flashdance, but you may also recognize her from her long-running television series, The L Word. Now, it's impossible not to see it. We've got to talk about the New Republic symbology in her headdress.
That's right.
What do we think about that?
Well, so at first glance, it certainly would indicate that she's maybe, I don't know if in world, if that's clubbing it over the head a little, but certainly it's a nod to us that she might be an agent for the I guess the fledgling New Republic, or
Sure.
endorsed by the New Republic. But at the center of it, it's almost like an Imperial symbol or a TIE fighter.
Yeah,
kind
the
of
ball,
guy.
the ball cockpit there at the middle of it.
So just to throw some, a monkey wrench into the whole thing, it's. I think that's a symbol that she's pretty squarely neutral in terms of
that may in
the
fact be
politics of the
exactly what it
galaxy.
is. Yeah.
All sides are welcome here. It's a sanctuary.
Well,
Right, so it's
and
very
there
much
again, the
Mas
metaphor.
Kanata.
Yeah. Okay, so the next thing we get is as Garsa departs. Where are we here? Let me just put this up here. As Garsa departs, the two Twi'lek attendants return with the helmets. Looking down at his, Boba sees that it is now full of New Republic credits. So, with the credits, I want to talk about the credits for a second because we kind of poured over this a little bit more than maybe I should have. We can see that the coins here basically come in two basic types. There's a large silver coin and there is a smaller bronze coin. So the imagery that looks like a number 7 with 2 vertical strokes, that is the symbol for credits in the Orabesh.
Is.
And then I really struggled with figuring out. I couldn't figure out the denominations. And then earlier today, just before we started, Andy, you'd had the eureka moment.
I did. I was into a couple of different Reddits and whatnot, going down some rabbit holes, and one of them says, when kids are learning their galactic Orabesh and their basic and their tech, they are taught it not just front to back, but sideways, mirrored, reversed. That way you can read it
right
because you're like in a zero gravity in space. You got to read it from all ways.
From every. Oh my gosh! Of course.
So if you turn both of these coins, so the credit sign is facing on its side.
Yeah.
You can read that the silver one is most likely a 100.
Oh.
And the little bronze gold one is most likely a 500.
Okay.
In Orabesh basic.
Well,
Orabesh tech, sorry.
Man, you deserve an absolute pat on the back for that, because I was really struggling with that.
But in this, finding this little rabbit hole, this also dispels some of the stuff we saw in like the Bad Batch,
right?
Where we had taken issue, like, oh look, that the signage on the way to Sid's was backwards, but it's not really backwards. It's just viewable
from both sides.
Yeah, that's how they were taught it.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
So,
okay, well, man, thanks for filling that one in, because I said, I struggled with that like for most of yesterday afternoon. All right, so out on the street as they leave, or I should say, as they depart the sanctuary, Fennec remarks that Boba's helmet looks shinier than hers. Ha 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 ha. Out on the street, Boba mentions that Jabba had many vassals and that they have a lot of ground to cover if they want to keep his empire intact. Fennec insists that she can make the rounds without him, but Boba responds with that line from the trailer, Jabba ruled with fear, I intend to rule with respect. But Fennec isn't convinced, and she respectfully answers with, in difficult times, fear is a sure thing. Unaware that they've been followed, an armed man dressed in some kind of uniform leaps off a rooftop. Before Boba and Fennec can respond, 5 more uniformed men armed with energy pikes join the fray, surrounding the duo with a wall of energy shields. And as I said, there's that the reuse of the Zuvio helmet. There's a weird looking alien there. For the life of me, I could not. And I mean, I have a couple of like Star Wars alien books here.
Looks a lot like Forlom.
Yeah,
or
but the huge, like, I don't know what you call those on his head. The big,
right?
They're kind of like horns. I don't know what they are.
I'm gonna zoom in on that sucker.
Yeah.
That could be a headdress, and that could be he looks a lot like a 4LOM creature.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, like a Gand.
Right, again, there it
Gand.
is. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, we're always saying we want more aliens to show up. So
yeah, we do,
right,
and I mean we're definitely getting them. All right, so a fight ensues. Boba attempts to use one of his wrist rockets, but the blast is contained by the energy shields, and both he and Fennec are knocked to the ground. They do their best to repel the assailants, but the uniformed men are exceptionally well coordinated in their strikes. Boba offers his arm in an attempt to vault Fennec over the shield wall, but the maneuver fails. Finally, the Gamorreans catch up, and the shield wall is broken. The mystery attackers now have twice as many opponents to deal with. The Gamorreans quickly cut through the formation and easily outclass the uniformed attackers. Then it's an all-out melee, but 2 of the men strike Boba simultaneously, seriously wounding him. As the Gamorreans and Fennec make short work of their opponents, the remaining 3 men attempt to flee, but Boba disintegrates one with a wrist rocket. So much for no disintegrations.
Perfect.
Okay, let's talk about this fight for a minute here, because this has been maybe the biggest feather in the craw, I think, for the entire episode. All of the criticisms, or most of the criticisms I've seen this week, are coming out of the fight here. What do you guys think of the fight?
it makes a statement of his current position, like physically.
Right. I just rewatched every ounce of Boba Fett stuff. I got to rewatch in the next few days coming up to this. And, remember when we all went, Cosca Reeves kind of goes toe to toe with him in that one episode. And we went,
Yep.
He's an older fella now. And at that point in his career, which is just before this, he's not altogether well. Like, even Lauren said, perhaps that being in the Sarlacc pit has lasting or maybe even permanent effects. And he's going to have to return to that back to tank quite often. Maybe that
I wondered
he's
that
being
as well.
rotted from the inside out. Certainly he's not 100% himself. And who's to say that these guys aren't elite trained soldiers? Certainly when they take up that phalanx position, they're I've heard a little bit of maybe the argument that he didn't just jetpack the hell out of there. One thing. Maybe the jetpack doesn't work without the helmet on.
That's another one. Yeah,
that could because you have to, that sound that it makes when he puts it on.
At the same time, like the Vader, the helmet seal,
right. So maybe the helmet doesn't jetpack.
Now, mind you,
work without the whole armor on.
We saw Din Djarin activate his jetpack by wrist control.
It's
now,
true.
Is that a universal thing, or is that like a personal thing?
I would say that everybody's got slightly different tech, like
I would think so.
You're tinkering with your own armor. Sabine Wren actually makes there's a quote by her where she says like this armor is 500 years old, but I've modified it to my liking, and she means the painting or actually the things that it can do. But he takes one pike. There's a scene where he grabs the pike and the guy's sticking him in the sort of the armpit or the underarm, and he's taking the full brunt of one of them, and he breaks the guy's hold on it. He's still an elite fighter. He's in a broken space right now. And I've also heard the complaint that Fennec makes short work of 2 of these guys where he doesn't. And we see. Do you guys remember when she wrecked Wrecker?
Yeah, she's
a master assassin. She's like. This is going to put a lot of things in people, like a craw in a lot of people's bonnet, but she's a better fighter than Boba Fett. Why does Boba Fett need her? Because she's his like his number one. That's his.
Yeah.
He's not going to go toe to toe with you. He might, but he doesn't have to, because that's what she's for.
I was going to say, as an assassin, I would think that, an assassin wouldn't want to be in a stand-up fight. That's not their style. They want to get in and get out. They want to hit the target, kill it, and be gone.
Well, as she goes chasing after him, he calls her. He's like, "Keep one alive."
Yeah, alive.
But
he's going to be your Tony Soprano, where he's like, he's ruling, but he's got his guys that do his dirty work for him. Sure, he's going to get his hands dirty every once in a while. We're going to love it, but he's going to have. This is about him building a criminal empire. I've also heard that. Oh, he's a good guy now. He's not a good guy. He's building a criminal empire.
He's not a hero. He's anti-hero at best. And I mean, he's in self-serving, like 100%. Even if he has a moral code, he's certainly not going to do anything that does not, serve him in some way.
Yeah. And if you go back to the whole respect thing, and you dive in on the possible relationship between him and Fennec, he's not going to just leave her there to get her ass kicked.
Well, that's one of the points that I had.
If you want to look at a character that Boba Fett's probably based on the most, it's probably the man with no name from the Clint Eastwood, the Sergio Leone trilogy. And there's so much about that guy that when you watch those movies, he's not a good guy. He has questionable morals, and he does horrible things. But at the end, you're rooting for him because the people around him are worse. Like Lee Van Cleef, right? Right. So, and that's sort of the idea here, is that like he's probably a pretty despicable guy, but he's surrounded by people that are way worse.
I would say the one legitimate issue that I have with the whole sequence is that there's a continuity error that comes from just an editing mistake. You can call it bad editing, and ostensibly that's what it is. But when you see Boba and Fennec leave the sanctuary, there's a tight shot, and the two Gamorreans are right behind them. Then as they walk down the street, and she's saying, "I could be doing this by myself," there's a long shot, and the Gamorreans are not there. Do you know what I mean? Because you're like, well, the Gamorreans are right there with them. Why aren't they getting in the fight? And
probably
then they come in later.
To smell some food.
Yeah, really. So I mean, to me,
the marketplace,
could they have stopped,
or just kind of straight off course to grab a sandwich or something?
Maybe.
Or it's also entirely possible they just sat back in the cut to see what the boss had.
That's entirely true as well. You brought up the thing about why didn't he just use his jetpack? I mean, arguably it's one of his biggest assets, but really, I mean, aside from the script, narratively speaking, I mean, yes, Fennec Shand is a master assassin, and she's a totally kick-ass character, but like, these are 6 well-armed, highly motivated, coordinated attackers. I mean, six opponents to one. Okay, yeah, she took out Wrecker, and yeah, she's a formidable fighter, but 6 people, I don't think Boba is going to bail out on her.
No, definitely not. And the other thing is, that jetpack is an expensive shot.
Oh, of course it is.
Right, so we're not going to overuse that stuff. He's gonna fly around in a jetpack. We're going to love every second of it, but it's going to be timed perfectly.
Imagine for a second that you're Boba Fett and you were trying to assert dominance over Jabba's former empire, and the first time that you're met with a challenge, you fly away.
Yeah.
Right.
What does that do for your credibility?
So I mean he jetpacks out, turns around, flamethrowers them, or uses some wrist rockets or something, but
drops a missile on them.
I'm going to say, like, in the first 5 minutes of the next episode, he remarked, like, "Oh, my jetpack doesn't work without my helmet on," or something like that.
Maybe
shut people up, but that's a good enough excuse for me that the armor works in conjunction with itself. So.
I just don't think that he was going to leave her to her own devices to fend them off.
No. And certainly the honor among thieves thing is going to be very, very strong, and we're going to learn the kind of man that Boba Fett is.
Yes, absolutely.
The Tusken Raider backstory. That's
right.
What kind of man he is without armor on.
Exactly.
Now, do we think that these guys are the delegation that the Twi'lek?
Oh, that's a great question. I
said you will be getting a visit from.
I've got a point on that. Where did I put that?
Not to skip ahead.
No, that's fine. You know what? I do. I know that in the marketing we talked about, like
they look uniformed. They look like
we'd ask, are these perhaps like city police, or what are they doing with the shields trying to contain it? Just made sense. They're carrying essentially
The guy
riot
she
gear
spares has facial tattoos underneath his ninja
underneath
mask.
his balaclava. Oh, interesting. I personally do think that this is the delegation that the major domo said was going to show up later.
Yeah.
Which means that the mayor
He's scared.
is a shady bad guy.
Either that or he's already scared of him.
And I
Well,
had said that too. In a power vacuum, this mayor fancies himself Jabba's replacement already.
okay, so let's break that one down, because we saw at the end of the Mandalorian, he walks into the palace and Bib Fortuna is sitting there.
Right.
Like, did any of us actually think that Bib Fortuna by himself could hold Jabba's empire together?
No way.
So, I mean, the mayor of Mos Espa learns that Jabba the Hutt is dead and maybe cuts a deal with Bib Fortuna saying, like, you can be the figurehead, but I'm really running it.
Well, he probably sent the domo in there with the same offer. You know?
That's exactly why.
I bid you welcome. Now give me tribute.
Right.
And if you're in the fortress, it's going to be a lot harder to sort of physically take the power. And then if you're a mayor, or even with it takes someone like Boba Fett to walk in there and shoot you in the chest.
Crooked politician. That never happens. Okay, so where are we here? So as Fennec parkours up the wall after them, Boba calls out, telling her to bring them in alive. He beckons the Gamorreans to get him to the Bactapod. Now, clearly he's more wounded than we thought he was, because they had literally have to pick him up off the ground.
So maybe these the electric sticks.
Yeah.
Maybe they were packing more punch than we're led to believe, right?
But I mean, getting hit with two of them at the same time probably didn't help.
And several times throughout the course of the fight,
right,
he zapped.
Right.
So
because we all dialed in on Chewie's blaster when it fired at
Kylo my gosh,
Ren,
yeah.
And he stood and took it to his power levels of resistance or whatever. But
so Fennec, she acknowledges the order and then quickly tears off in pursuit. The chase sequence is something, it's very much like something out of an Assassin's Creed game, as both the uniformed men and Fennec tumble, leap, and roll with impressive skill as they move from one rooftop to another.
I was calling it Starcore.
Yeah, really. At the height of the chase, one of the men throws some kind of bladed weapon at Fennec, but she's able to avoid it by flipping. But the man is fast, and he throws a second projectile, forcing her to dive off the roof entirely to avoid it.
And she fakes them out here. She lets out a yelp like he hit her, but he doesn't hit her.
Oh, I thought that was. I just thought that was her diving off the building, I
kind of interpreted it like she was faking them out, like when you get shot.
I like
you don't
that
get
better.
Shot. Yeah.
I like that explanation better.
But it does give them more credit, with
it does.
abilities.
Yeah, I mean, they parkoured the crap out of this, and I mean, it was really nice to watch. Yeah. All right, catching the men off guard, she's able to get the drop on them and neatly disarms one of them of his pike. Now, empty-handed, Fennec promptly kicks the man off the rooftop, leaving just one to bring in alive.
That's all you need.
That's right. Yeah, he's definitely.
Look at his chest armor. It looks like it might be Stormtrooper armor modified.
Maybe. I mean, I'm sure there was stuff left over.
At that breastplate.
Yeah.
It looks very Stormtrooper-y.
So this, here we go. I've got some notes here talking about the delegation. Do we think that this was the delegation of the mayor's Major Domo warned us of? I went back into the marketing and I got a side-by comparison of, now here's the attackers on the left-hand side with the the energy pikes.
Right.
And then on the right-hand side is one of the guards from the mayor's chambers.
Mm-hmm. And it's the same palette. It's that burgundy and black.
But they are definitely distinctly different in the armor.
Mm-hmm.
So it could just be a classification. Like these are just the logo level, infantry guys that he sends first.
Right.
Sure.
Whereas your
Foot Clan. They look Clan
like the Foot Clan.
They do. They really do.
They really do. Yeah. I mean, we just saw some recent marketing in the last couple of weeks, which we're going to touch into that a little bit later with the Swoop Gang. A character showed up in one of the last TV spots that might be a Legends character, the character of Arden Lynn. And you see the big robotic arm on her. She shows up on a speeder bike. Now, I know a speeder bike is just an easy way to get around, and it's a common conveyance in Star Wars, but maybe this gang is, part of her way into the story.
Could be.
Maybe these red guys are like, you know how we saw in Mandalorian with the mining guild, how they all wore like a standard uniform?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's kind of like that, where these guys are a gang, but they all wear the same uniform.
Goons.
Yeah,
Hired goons.
exactly. Yeah. Foot Clan. All right. So back at the palace, the Gamorreans drag Boba back into the Bactapod. He can barely walk, and the Gamorreans don't even get all of his armor off before they lay him into it. And stuffing the respirator into his mouth and closing the pod lid, Boba is immediately off on his second dream sequence of the episode. Still deeply burned and scarred from both the twin sons of Tatooine and the digestive juices of the Sarlacc, Boba is roused from his sleep by the Tusken boy. It seems that he and the Rodian are being led out into the desert for reasons unbeknownst to them. As the boy drags them along, the clan Massif follows at a short distance behind. Sometime into the journey, the group spots a plume of smoke rising over a dune. Approaching the smoke to get a better look, they hunker down behind a dune and peer over the top. It's a moisture farm, and it's getting ransacked by a swoop gang made up entirely of Niktos. The gang appears to be interested in collecting water from the ground tanks surrounding the farm. As soon as their jerry cans are full, they mount their bikes and take off, but not before one of the thugs tags the farmhouse with a strange marking. So right off the bat, I put in a comparison shot here with the Lars farm just so we can rule that out, that no, It is not, in fact, the Lars farm.
No.
It's very similar.
Similar in structure.
Yeah.
That would explain desert buildings.
So,
right, the igloo style.
Yeah.
Sand igloos.
This one is another one that, and I have not seen any other entertainment outlet comment on this. Nobody to my knowledge, has broken this, that this marking is the letter K in the Nal Hati's written language.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It's on the bike too. It's on both the bikes.
Oh, I never noticed that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
It's hard to see in that image, but it's actually on both bikes as well.
But that doesn't make it any clearer for us, because now I start going, K. What the hell does the K mean?
Right.
What is that connected to?
Right.
I mean, we talked offline before about the 2015 Marvel comic where Jabba had instituted a water tax during one of the worst droughts in Tatooine history.
Yep, that's right.
But that doesn't make sense, because, I mean, that's when Obi-Wan was in exile. I mean, Obi-Wan's dead, Jabba's dead. Why are these guys still running around doing this?
Right. So they're clearly they're clearly marking their own territory here. This is what they're trying to stake a claim. This isn't the action of an organized group of well-oiled mercenary thugs that have leaders that are. This is a gang, like street punks, and
after their first couple hits, leaving their tag.
Exactly. It's you don't. Kingpin doesn't tag things around New York City, right?
No.
Like low-level thugs spray paint their name after a job. To get their name out there. Everybody knows Kay did this.
You mean this is not the Star Wars Banksy?
No, I think what you're going to find.
Wet bandits.
This is the lowest level thug that you could have, but I bet you find that there's a vast array of them, like a lot of these guys loosely organized into these sort of thuggy cults of gang members. There's other privy to the comics, and sort of the you get really a better picture of the underworld in the comics.
Yeah.
And there's a faction at play in the comics that is so much they have so much more power comparatively than any of the groups that we've really been into, except for, say, the Hutts. And then most of our Hutt lore comes from some Clone Wars episodes, but a lot of the Legends stuff. So we've never been to Nal Hutta yet. We've never been to Nar Shaddaa, the moon.
Right.
I think we're probably heading in that direction with some of this stuff. I think you might, but but it's the Crimson Dawn that I'm actually getting at here.
Well, I was going to say in Star Wars, I mean, as you say, in Legends, everything kind of points organized crime in Star Wars. You know, as you talk about levels, the further you go up, I mean, it funnels down into basically a couple of areas: the Hutts, the Black Sun.
That's right.
Which is now, I mean, has now been recanonized to be
That's
just
right.
a lower level of the Crimson Dawn.
That's right.
So,
and what you really do though, like, I mean, even the Hutts fall under the Crimson Dawn in the version of the Crimson Dawn that we saw Maul running.
Yeah.
Like he subjugates the Hutts. He subjugates everybody involved. The Pike Syndicate.
Right.
And they all end up working like, you know, in some fashion for him. But what most people don't realize is that in the vacuum of his death, that Kira actually is crazy crafty, like high end level sort of super villain.
Okay.
And really the character that we see at the very end of Solo, the character that you know turns her back
that
on
reports
Han
directly to Maul.
Very much that character is who she's portrayed as in the comics, and I actually would be, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we got Emilia Clarke in this show.
Yeah, I've heard some rumblings that maybe this is a good way to bring Alden Ehrenreich back for a cameo. And I mean, and if you're going to do that, then you might as well bring everybody who comes with it.
Right, and you know, when they did announce this big spat of shows, they announced the Lando show that nobody's talked about in eons. So, and they do want them all to interconnect and stuff. But I think it's a good bet that we're going to see Crimson Dawn, and if it's not just a cameo, you're going to see some bigger involvement.
Right.
You know, it's you get so many cool things from Solo stemmed out of those little scenes, like the Terrascasi, the actual Terrascasi she used. Like Dryden Voss has Mandalorian armor just sitting on a mantle there, like you know, like there's some cool things going on there.
Well, speaking of Terrascasi, that goes back to we were talked about this Arden Lynn character coming back, and if you're not familiar with her, she was actually a playable character in the video game Masters of Terrascasi.
That's right.
Basically, she was a Jedi hunter killer. Yeah. All right, I want to talk about it a little bit about the water tax, so we can just sort of wrap this up, because I know like sometimes we like to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
Right.
Talking about the water tax, the 2015 Marvel comic, Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi struggles in his exile, unable to help the locals during an intense drought. During that period, Jabba the Hutt institutes a water tax, reportedly so that he could take long baths. And it was Jabba's goons that had collected this tax on his behalf. Obi-Wan risks exposure to try and sell some black melons to the locals, citing that the Tuskens have been surviving on them for decades. The same black melons that we saw back in The Mandalorian, the very one that Cobb Vanth refused. So black melons apparently are culturally significant to the Tuskens because when he refused it, they were very insulted.
That's right.
Of course, as we'd said now about the Jabba connection, he's been dead for like 5 or 6 years at this point. So the idea that these guys are connected to Jabba are like very, very slim to none.
I mean, there's a possibility they could be using his name.
Maybe. And that was the other thing, was like, well, does anybody, I mean, if nobody sees the body, is he really dead?
Yeah.
I mean, because I mean, how many people would see, now mind you, Fennec just said that the people are used to seeing the Hutts carried around on a litter.
Right.
So maybe, you know,
it could be possible that Fortuna could have maybe, you know,
kept the illusion
for a short while.
Yeah.
I don't know if we could make it happen in 5 years, but I guess 5 years isn't really that long a time. It would be hard. There's a lot of Hutts involved in that.
Yeah.
You know, like,
for
like
sure.
Jabba, you got Jabba's high, but there are Hutts that are higher. There's a whole council of Hutts.
Yep. All right, we'll move on then. So once the Nikto gang rides off, the Tusken boy drags his prisoners away for some time until later stopping them in a seemingly random place in the desert. The boy gestures to the ground with his stick, ordering Boba and the Rodian to get down. Unsure of what it is that he's supposed to do, the boy then makes a digging gesture with his arm and produces a black melon from the pouch on his belt. He holds it up to his mouth grill and he makes a drinking gesture to get his point across. Dig for water. As the Rodian and Boba dig for melons, the boy and the Massive sit on the sand nearby and watch. Now, the Rodian seems to have a knack for harvesting melons because he's now come up with his second, while Boba has none. Finally coming up with a melon of his own, Boba hastily cracks it open and he drinks from it. But Boba's insolence isn't taken lightly, and the Tusken boy charges at him with his stick. But Boba catches it mid-swing, telling the youngling to take it easy. I need some water. But the Tusken is insistent, and with an outstretched hand, he demands the melon be handed over. When Boba gives it up, the boy sadistically dumps the water onto the desert floor, while the Massive laps at the water midstream. Sometime later, as the two prisoners continue to dig, the boy and the Massive are napping on a nearby dune. Boba admonishes the Rodian for sounding the alarm back in the Tusken camp. Still chained together, Boba then tells them that if they can get to Anchorhead, he can get them off-world, but the Rodian ignores him and continues to dig. Frustrated, Boba grasps the chain, tethering the two together, and he asserts that he could just as soon strangle the Rodian with it and feed his leg to the sleeping Massive. At that, the Rodian looks back at Boba and shouts an insult, calling him a Slimo, with the added familiar poodoo. All right. So where are we at here now?
So based on what's coming up, though, are we certain that these are melons?
I am.
Okay.
I'm 100% certain that these are the black melons. It's the same fruit, as I said, back in The Mandalorian, when Din Djarin and Cobb Vanth were trying to get them to work together, and they started formulating the initial plan. They offered them
in not to be gross, but in the same way, maybe Cobb Vanth has further knowledge of what they actually are.
Oh, maybe.
And in similar to, say, a road apple.
I don't think that.
Desert fruit.
I don't think that. Just a little bit more on the black melon thing. Obi-Wan, in that same run of comics, had said that, they tasted horrible, but they were safe. And so that's where he was trying to get across, like, hey, like the Tuskens have survived on these things for decades. In the midst of this drought, you should take them. You should buy them. They're going to work for you.
I'm just looking at it like maybe a desert as a litter box type thing for certain creatures.
We see them close up. I think I've got one here later on. We see it close up where they plunge their thumbs into it, and you see the black mist coming out of it. Yeah. It definitely has the striations of like a gourd, like a pumpkin or something of that kind. Yeah. All right, now we're going to get into a pretty exciting sequence here. Turning his attention back to digging, the Rodian is puzzled as he inadvertently uncovers what appears to be a large, scaly reptilian appendage. Clearing more sand away, he can see that the limb ends in long talons. Suddenly, the appendage bursts from the sand and takes the Rodian by the arm. Then a second appendage erupts, then a third, and finally a fourth. With all four of its upper limbs planted on the ground, what can only be described as a mythological titan pushes itself up from the sand, towering over the Rodian, at least 15 feet tall. The beast roars ferociously and pounds the Rodian into the desert, killing him. The Tusken boy, now wide awake, stands dumbfounded just a few feet away from the beast. And like any loyal dog protecting its master, the Massive charges in, grabbing one of the Titan's arms. But the Massive might as well be a stuffed toy as it is thrown away like an old ragdoll. The beast, still holding the chain in one of its lower limbs, dangles Boba precariously upside down. Turning its attention, the beast wastes no time grasping Boba's head with two of its upper limbs and begins to crush it. But the Tusken boy, having now found his courage, rushes in and stabs the beast through the foot with its stick, which only serves to enrage the creature even more, and it bats him away like a wiffle ball.
Yeah. But going back there just to solidify that this is the chief's son.
Yeah.
Like that Massive protects him like he's the chief's son.
Yeah, very much so. Very much.
So
like a loyal dog, like a loyal pet.
Yeah.
All right. With the Titan distracted, Boba tries to rope two of its arms with his ankle chain, but the Titan punches him squarely in the face, sending him flying several feet away. Pulling the stick out of its foot, the beast drops down on four limbs and, moving like an ape, quickly stalks toward the boy. But before it can reach him, Boba throws his ankle chain around its neck and climbs on its back. Pulling for all he's worth, Boba wraps the chain around his forearm for even more leverage. With his legs now underneath him, Boba practically stands on the Titan's back, choking the life out of it. And when the beast falls, the Tusken boy looks on in awe at the man standing there holding his chain in victory.
Kind of a reminiscent death there, though, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, you can't help but
Jabba got his
legacy moment here. Yep. We're going back to the Hut Slayer Leia.
Yeah, he didn't bite that maneuver though, because he was in the pit for it, so he could. Yeah. He didn't know what happened.
No.
And you got to figure there's a bit of story here that has to be like exposition that doesn't happen on camera, where he finds out that Jabba is dead.
Oh yeah,
because I mean, just crawling out of the pit, and he doesn't even get a chance to examine the wreckage or find a body or anything like that. So maybe we'll see him physically revisit the wreckage, maybe
the crash
find
site,
the corpse.
Yeah, maybe,
or maybe it'll just be a story by a local. But
maybe
at some point he's going to find that out, which is going to
lead him.
Oh my gosh, at some point it's going to occur to him, I could get my armor back. So
yeah.
I think maybe even if the Tuskens encounter that town, he might, then he'll know where the armor is. Kind of
right.
These little threads that are coming back around still.
Absolutely, there are. So back at the Tusken camp, the boy rushes in carrying the severed head of the desert titan like a trophy. Proudly and ever so boastfully, the boy shows off the head to his elders while Boba and the Massive trail after them.
So I got that impression. I think you did too. Is that he was taking credit for this?
Absolutely, he was.
Yeah.
I don't think
the only one in on it is Dad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit here about the. And here's the other thing that this was another one that I just don't understand why people would complain about this. The creature itself. There's no denying that this thing is very much inspired by the work of stop motion animation legend Ray Harryhausen.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, if you right now, if you're watching, you can see. I've got some images here of the Kraken from the 1981 Clash of the Titans, but then the other monster is the Ymir from the 1957 20 Million Miles to Earth. Now, I mean, if this creature is not a hybrid of those two, then I don't know what is.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I think that some fans, maybe casual fans, I don't want to insult them, but maybe they just don't understand where it's all coming from, and maybe some of the younger fans don't know how steeped how steep Star Wars is in what came before. So George Lucas has always been standing on the backs of giants.
Yes.
And there's a really famous story. Joseph Campbell wrote a lot of books about modern mythology and ancient mythology. He's pretty much the expert on the authority. Once was invited by Lucas to Skywalker Ranch to watch the original trilogy and said it was the best interpretation of the modern hero myth he had ever saw. So when Lucas takes, and his entourage and his people, when you watch the behind the mask, where you listen to Dave Filoni talk about what Lucas, what the things he would focus on to capture the essence of, like, if it wasn't for being steeped in this Ray Harryhausen style, stuff, or the serials from the 50s, or World War II fighter plane movies, or westerns, or samurai films, we wouldn't have Star Wars. So when people say that it's derivative, it doesn't make sense to me, because everything is derivative.
Everything is derivative of something else. But I'm going to go a little bit deeper on that, because I mean, anybody who balks at that, why was there this janky looking thing that looked it moved kind of jankily too, right? Like almost like they were trying to emulate the stop motion style. Come on, man. Like Star Wars, I mean, without stop motion, we would have no tauntauns, no dewbacks, no AT-ATs, no ATSTs, and well, this is it.
Right.
So I don't know.
It fit perfectly with all that.
Absolutely, it did. So apparently, now I heard somewhere that George Lucas had actually wanted to hire Ray Harryhausen for Star Wars, but couldn't get him, and that's how they ended up getting Phil Tippett.
Right.
But I mean, you look at that, talking about the backs of giants, right? So in Star Wars, you've got Phil Tippett, you've got John Dykstra and Dennis Muren, all of whom worked extensively on Star Wars. They all worked for ILM at one point, and they were all directly inspired by the works of Ray Harryhausen.
And all went on to have brilliant careers post Star Wars. Like,
this is it.
Giants of the industry, those guys.
So I mean, if you've got issues with, you know, an homage to Ray Harryhausen, I think that this is a beautiful way. I mean, on the notion that George wanted to have Ray Harryhausen but couldn't get him, you know, is this not just a beautiful way to say that Ray Harryhausen's legacy lives in Star Wars?
And isn't that the creators understanding the essence of it?
Yeah.
Like a lot more. I was joking earlier. I want to go to somebody's house and straighten them out, but more and more, the more I actually think about it, it's like, I don't want them as fans. I don't want them as our peer group. The vitriol, the crazy, just hate for hate's sake. Like they really don't have a place in our house. Like,
no, I don't think so either.
You know.
Unfortunately, as we've said it before, the fandom menace, it's a real thing.
It is a real thing.
Sometimes it's the loudest voice.
Yeah.
And there's always something to be said for pack mentality. I just, you know, I'm happy, you know, in our little isolated corner of the world, you know, sort of championing the, you know, what is now.
Gatekeeping the gatekeepers.
Yeah, that's right.
I actually had a friend at work, and I was like, you know, have you seen Boba Fett? He's like, no, but I read the reviews. I was like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I don't understand that mentality at all. Yeah. I want my opinion handed to me before I can experience it for myself. You can't ever go back from that, regardless of how strong you think you are, or you can't read somebody else's opinion and then go in clean. Because you're going to be informed by that.
Of course.
And
yeah,
so
no, you're absolutely right.
You know, one of his favorite thing is this YouTube channel called Honest Trailers.
Oh, okay.
It's some of them are funny for sure, but it shouldn't be your gateway into a movie.
No.
I
certainly you know, critics and critical analysis has a place. It's part of what we do here, but you know, criticism for criticism's sake, I don't know.
Right. And it just looks like it's because it's getting the hits. It's giving people their endorphins. And I would say to anybody who's interested in anything, if you're passionate about it, why would you want to spoil it before you get to experience it?
No, you're right. You're right.
You can listen to anything anybody has to say after you've formed your own opinion, but I think it's a real problem in society, even that people are taking other people's opinions as rote.
Yeah. All right.
Here's one opinion from us.
Yeah.
Based on the creature, they didn't really name it. They call it the behemoth.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
7 times in the descriptive audio.
They called it a behemoth. That's true. That's true.
Times.
Knowing that on Tatooine there are multiple species of
crate dragon. Yeah.
How about this be known as the Kratekin?
The Kratekin.
I like it.
I like that too.
I like it.
I like that too. And until there's an official word on that, that's what we're going with.
Right.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Lucasfilm.
Harry Kraken.
That's Fandom Power. That's Fandom Power. You saw it here first. The Kraken.
Stamp it there.
All right.
Right up there with Frog Mom.
Yes, Frog Mom and Longshore Mon.
That's right. You heard it here first.
That's right. Okay. So as the clan gathers to congratulate the boy on his victory, the chief and his wife emerge from their tent to see what the commotion is. The chief, being keenly observant, notices Boba flash a grin at the boy's elation, and the chief then knows the truth. And right there, Andy, there's your black melon there in his hand, super clear.
And we get a great shot of the two of these characters in full daylight, which we've always seen them either twilight or at night, and he looks pretty regal.
Very much.
Yeah, very regal.
And without a sound, the chief approaches Boba, and without even looking at him, hands him the black melon. The gesture is clearly meant as a thank you, and Boba takes a long and well-deserved drink before looking back toward the camp. And then we cut to black. And so ends the first episode, Stranger in a Strange Land, episode 1 of the Book of Boba Fett.
Then we get some wonderful, wonderful production art.
Yeah, we do. I mean, I did not dig into. Do you want me to start adding those in?
Well, there's one. The last shot they do in this one is kind of weird because it shows Boba on the throne.
Yeah,
but he's still wearing the same gear from Jedi.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, your concept art. I mean, what are you going to do with it, right?
Yeah.
So overall, now that we've gone through it, what do you guys think? We get predictions for next week?
I think we're going to run out of flashbacks sooner than later.
I don't. I think that the 2/3 of this episode was flashbacks, and all we did was get maybe 1 or 2 days of his life.
True.
I think
We got 5 years to make up.
Yeah, I think you might find that we follow the sort of Godfather 2 format, and we tell 2 stories simultaneously.
Yeah, the dual storytelling, which I got to be honest, I had a hard time. Everybody saw the first season of The Witcher?
Yeah.
Not yet.
So season 1 of The Witcher uses a similar narrative device where they tell things out of sequence over multiple time jumps. And I had a really hard time following that right up until the end. Whereas this, maybe because of the familiarity with the character and the locations, I really enjoyed the storytelling in this. And I hope we get more of it.
Yeah, it's really interesting that it's there's the way that he's being dragged through the desert on the rope is straight out of a Sergio Leone movie.
Yeah.
And I think that you're going to find that they spend some time because all we've ever had is the armor did all the talking. I mean, certainly as bigger fans, not bigger fans, but knowing the Clone Wars stuff and the little tidbits that we've read and research and stuff, but ostensibly on the surface, all everybody ever knows is that 2 minutes and 8 seconds of really friggin' cool armor. And I think now we're going to actually get to know the man that was back there. And I think a lot of us are going to be surprised that we didn't, even though we thought we know who he was, I don't think we do.
We don't know who he is, but we're going to find out.
Get to learn. Yeah. It's going to be a cool journey. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm so stoked.
Yeah. Well, guys, I don't think there's any more I can add on that. That's a great way to wrap things up here.
Only a couple more days to wait till the next one.
Couple more days, and then we're right back into writing and arguing and kibitzing back and forth about what the hell are we watching.
Down more rabbit holes.
Fantastic.
But you know what? It's what we love to do here, and we're happy to be back in the galaxy far, far away. We're happy to have you guys along for the ride. So we hope that you'll come back with us on the next 7 weeks as we continue our little show here. This one is the Book of Boba Fandom, here only on Fandom Power. All the lore, all the connections, all the speculation you've come to expect from us. We'll be back same time next week. Until then, for Fandom Power, I'm Wes.
I'm Andy.
I'm Hank.
We'll talk to you later. Bye for now, everybody.